Okay, so budgeting is extremely important, and can it be a little boring at times? Absolutely. Most things personal finance can be boring, but is extremely necessary. Let me explain how I do my budgeting and why budgeting is so important and all the things it can help you with. So, without further ado, let's get into the video. I want to start off with how I budget, and I want to go ahead and put this in the air, but it does base off your income. So if you're a low earner, budgeting could be a little bit more complicated versus somebody who makes a lot of money, because the more money you make, the easier it is, and you don't really need to budget as much as somebody who doesn't make as much. If you don't make a lot of money, you have to cut corners with your budgeting, meaning you have to really be spot on, versus somebody who makes a lot of money and can kind of move things around how they want to. I don't really have to do this because I can afford to pay all my expenses plus more, plus this, plus that. You kind of get what I'm saying. When I budget, I only have 3 categories, and this can be different for everybody. Like I said, it all depends on how much you make. So if you make a ton of money, maybe you don't have no categories. Maybe you don't even make the time to budget. You like, I just buy what I want, and that's just how it is. This video wouldn't be that useful to you, but maybe you are a low earner and you need a budget literally everything you do, or you won't be able to afford your main expenses. But I have 3 categories that I go by, and that is my main expenses, that is the things I want, and miscellaneous. My main expenses, stuff of like rent, car payment, gas, food, which fluctuate. Gas and food, that isn't always the same, but stuff of that nature. And then you have things you want, and then miscellaneous, like family stuff, if you do family stuff, trips, if you go on trips, stuff of that nature. It's just stuff that's one-off that don't typically happen but maybe happen, or maintenance to a vehicle, or you're having a birthday party so you need to buy more food than you typically would. That will fall in the miscellaneous category, so you don't know it's coming until it comes type of expense. And that's pretty much how I do budgeting. And trust me, I used to think budgeting was a waste of time. At this time, I was a low earner. So when you have that low earner mentality where it's like, I just need to make more money, which, don't get me wrong, that is the remedy to majority of your problems. I hate to be that person, but the more money you make, the less direct problems you have. Of course, there are other problems that come about, but let's talk about some of those benefits of budgeting. So first and foremost, when you're budgeting, you are in financial control of all your income and your expenses. So you know exactly what's going out and what's coming in. And when you have a situation like that, it's really good, because not only do you understand your finances in and out, but you can start to notice problems. Like, for example, if you're spending too much on subscriptions, I hate to say this because I know a lot of people hate when it's like cut subscriptions, but there is a point where you have too many subscriptions, and some people don't really know they're paying for it. And I fall into this category. And in other videos, I talk about having my business and it having a ton of different subscriptions. Like, for example, I know a lot of people probably have a lot of iCloud space. I have a ton of it because the videos I make for this channel, I put on different devices, but the files are sometimes large, so I need to keep buying more space, but I have different devices that hold different amounts of space. So it can get a bit out of hand, just that alone, and not saying all the other little subscriptions I need in order to operate this business and all my other businesses. So that alone, I have to be able to know exactly how much I'm spending every month on subscriptions. That's just the example, but this can go as far as your food, your gas, your expenses around the house, stuff of that nature. You would understand if you're spending too much on little things. That does add up. Like if you're spending $50 here, $100 here, maybe $200 there on different subscriptions that you need to operate your life, and maybe you don't need them anymore. But by having your finances under control, put you in a position to be able to cut expenses that's truly unnecessary. So I would say for the most part, when you're budgeting, you notice things like that. But when you don't budget, how would you know if you're spending money on something that you don't need? Another thing budgeting truly helps with, for my people that like to save their money, you know, if you are saving it, save it in a high yield savings account. And if you're wondering which one is a good one, try SoFi. I have it linked below if you are interested. But you want to save your money the right way, and budgeting definitely helps with that. If you do not budget, it's hard to save money no matter how much money you earn. Of course, the more you earn, the more you can save. That's very obvious. But even somebody who makes a lot, they lose track of the things that they're spending their money on, which if they were budgeting, like I was saying in the last point, you will see all the things you're spending unnecessary money on, which if you're not spending that unnecessary money on those things, you can then put it into your savings account, or you can invest in stocks, or you can put it into a Roth IRA or your 401k, whatever shoe fits. You put it somewhere where your money could be working for you, and extremely good budgeting will help with that. So I advise anybody in any financial situation to be budgeting at some degree, maybe not as much as others if you make a ton of money, but if you don't make a lot of money, you should be budgeting like crazy. And what I've noticed from properly budgeting is it reduces a lot of stress. Have you ever been in a situation where you're spending money here, there on little miscellaneous stuff, and you start to wonder or start to have that anxiety of like, how am I going to make this money back? Or am I spending too much money on pointless stuff? If you ever felt like that, that's because you're probably not budgeting properly. And I truly mean that, because when you have a real budget and the budget is very strict, you only spend what you can spend. Like I was telling you, I have those 3 categories, which is my main expenses, the things I want, and then miscellaneous. If you have a certain budget for those things and your income is always fixed, or you know roughly around how much you're going to make, you can only spend the amount that you budgeted. But some people break those budgets, or some people don't have a budget, so they just keep spending until they realize they have no more money left. So now you're under a ton of stress. And of course, if you don't make a lot of money, spending period can be a little bit overwhelming. And I understand that. And that's why it's extremely important to make more money. But when you get to the point where you make more money, it's extremely important that you budget your spending, because even if you do make a lot, you can still spend it all. And I talk about this in other videos. I talk about how focused I am on all my expenses, on everything going out and everything coming in, because cost cutting is like one of the most important things a business has to do in order for it to be able to scale year after year. Because if you're not focused on cost cutting, eventually your expenses can get out of hand to a point where the money that you bring in won't be enough to pay for everything that you got going out. So be extremely critical on how you budget and how you go about spending your money and where you put your money at. But doing proper budgeting, I would say, for the most part, like I always say, this is not financial advice, but this is just my opinion. I would say it will help you out financially. It will definitely reduce your stress, and it will put you in a position where you can invest in performing assets that will eventually help your money grow over time. Always make sure you do your own due diligence and make sure that this makes sense for your financial situation. But with that being said, I'll see y'all on the next one.